That voice Zoom does is terrible. All right, kicking this off. Welcome to David Fernandez. My first item that I sort of pegged above everyone else was that I should have introduced David in his first meeting that we just had earlier this morning, and that was a bit of a fail. So that goes in my what didn't go so well, but Nico called me out. So welcome to David. David, could you care to just introduce yourself really quickly, where you were before GitLab, why you joined the team, what you like to do for fun outside of work?
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm David, and so I'm from Spain, but I live in Switzerland, and I've been doing software development for like 15 years now, starting with Java. I know that's not good, and I switched to Rails for the last 6 years. And previously, I was in a small startup, 15 people, mainly doing digital signage and handling real-time data from transport companies. So creating billboards like next departures, ads, disruptions, and things like that. And now here I am.
Why did you want to join GitLab?
That's a good question. I guess it's the challenge of being in a larger company. I mean, larger than 15 people, and also working on the really complex Rails application, which is GitLab itself. So
cool.
That's it.
Yeah, okay. That's awesome. No problem. I always forget one of those questions that we ask people, so I'm sure I forgot it, but that's okay. Welcome to the team, David. Where, as you know already, everyone's really excited. You'll find there's a lot of welcome Davids in the what went well this week. So don't feel like you're out of the spotlight entirely. But awesome, thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
So what went not so well? Just sort of like a very high stress week for me. I'm just trying to get Conan finished up as my vacation is coming up. And now that review is sort of like the main limiting factor. I might have to hand some things off while I'm gone, which isn't the best scenario, but it's kind of where it's at. Over to Ian.
So the thing that went well, not so well for me this week, the survey was delayed for a little bit. And so this week I felt like I had to dedicate some time to the survey, which means I couldn't do my like 12.4 work. So I feel like I'm just caught in that catching up game, which is never very productive. Over to Tim.
Yeah, I've been struggling this week with context switching. I feel like I've been really like thinking a lot about what do we want to build over the next 6 to 9 months for a long time. And now I'm trying to dive into what specifically do we want to build and how should it work? And my brain just completely stalled. So I'm trying to break this cycle. I was just venting to Ian a little bit in our one-on-one, but I went for a long walk yesterday and I'm trying to build some space and things like that. So hopefully it could break this writer's block. This happened on 12/2. I had a similar feeling. So I know I'll get over it, but it was hard. And I'm sure engineers know all about context switching being challenging. But yeah, that's all. Other than that, it was a good week for me. Nico, over to you.
Yeah, so due to the fact that I ran out of issue in the middle of the week, I was checking what is left over, and I think the front end and back end work is a bit skewed, where a bit is not a bit but a lot for now. So it feels like it's like we need to do work to produce work to be done, and that's not the best. Sorry, and over to Dan.
Thanks. And I feel weird because I put in a few and it doesn't look like everyone else did. All right. Yeah, so I feel like we're overcommitted to 12.4 a little bit. And I'd really like to be able to iterate faster on our processes. where they're not working out for us. And sometimes like that month-to-month cadence makes it a little bit of a long process to resolve some of the changes we need to make, because you've got to collect data and it ends up being over the month. Some teams are trying doing weekly sprints. I worry about the overhead of all the meetings or weekly sprints. So especially in an async setup, it's just harder for some people to participate in all those meetings. So trade-offs. I'm still sick too. I should probably put that in there, but anyway. Haven't got a good strategy documented for bugs and including them in our milestones. I prefer that this was self-service for Tim, but that's been stopping me from getting something out there. And so I think that's a bit of a fail on my part. I'd prefer to have something, you know, the enemy, perfect is the enemy of done, that whole thing. So they need to get through that. And then I realized that we're not engaging in healthy conflict in our team, which is part of the reason we have the retro this morning. Just sort of to call out areas where you know, I've talked to individuals and they've sort of been saying, well, this didn't seem right from them, but I never mention it because reasons, and I'm just trying to be helpful. And I love that everyone's trying to be helpful. It's great. That's one of the things I like about working as a team with you all. But if we don't engage in that sort of, hey, this isn't right, then we ultimately fail as a team as well. So I'm trying to introduce that as a little bit more of a focused effort. Over to you, Nick.
Yeah, so for me, this week, most of my MRs have been pretty much all back-end focused with a lot of Ruby code. And it's been pretty hard to respond to some of the feedback to that because I don't really, well, I know what they are suggesting, you know, it's obvious what maintainers are suggesting and what needs to be done. I just don't really know how to do it in Ruby. So it's, I've in a couple of instances, I've had to go back and sort of say, look, I'm not a back-end engineer, so I'm going to take on board your point and I'll create an issue for it in the future and somebody else can deal with it. Or I've attempted to implement their feedback and I'm trying to guess whether or not it's good enough, essentially. So that's where one of my bad things are this week. And yeah, over to Steve, I guess, who's just added another one.
Yeah, one more just quick bad thing for me. It was this is kind of also like just today, is I realized that I was using the large weight incorrectly. Which isn't good for anyone if I have a different understanding of the weight than everyone else does. So yeah, I went and read the handbook and I will use it appropriately moving forward. So over to what went well. David started, welcome. And this week I wrote the final test for Conan. So everything is kind of like in the review phase right now, which is awesome. And it just feels great to be through all of that. I felt extremely productive this whole week, sort of just in all aspects of work, like every single thing I've done every day. I just felt like I've been like in the zone. And one other thing that I kind of noted was that I just really enjoyed attending the company-wide retro this week. It was just like, I just had a very nice time sort of listening in on all the other engineering groups and like how they're feeling and the things that they're working on. And it was just a very nice meeting. Over to Ian.
So contrary to my bad thing that happened this week, we wrapped up the survey, which is really exciting. I shared a lot of the data with you all and it was, you know, validated a lot of what we already thought, which is great. And then we got some new insights, which is even better. So I'm really excited that we were able to wrap that up. And then I just wanted to call out that the Think Big meetings that Tim and I have been sharing with all of you seems like a really good energy, at least. Like people seem to be contributing to the conversation and we're talking about our vision and what we could do and what we can't do. And I really, I know our synchronous time is precious. So the fact that we're utilizing it for that kind of dream state, if you will, I thought was really, really good. Now over to Tim.
Okay, so yeah, I agree. My first ones, we had some great interactions with customers via Slack, issues, and Reddit this week. I shared some of them in the package channel. It's really cool to see how passionate our users and customers can be at both. And it was really cool in that one Slack that I shared, and they're saying, oh, we're posting this to our internal wiki. I love GitLab and things like that. It's really inspiring because reading the issues, a lot of times we read the negative comments and things that are wrong. It's nice when you get those positive stories. So I save those for myself and look at those on a bad day. I thought, the next one is Stan's investigation into the improving the error handling for the container registry is like, it's what I love about GitLab. One, how this got prioritized by Dan and Darby to get Stan, one of our is he principal engineer, Dan? Is it staff?
Technically, it is an engineering fellow. Although
fellow.
I'm not sure that's inclusive language. So.
We got our engineering fellow to look into this issue, and Stan is like providing updates, several times a day on the status of the investigation and what's happening. And it's all of the GitLab values that are coming through in one issue, and it's really cool to see. So that's been awesome. And thanks to Dan and Darby for helping him get Stan's time. And the next thing is just meeting Dan in person and strategizing and how we should plan the features with the team that we have and the people that we have, and how that impacts hiring and things like that was really cool. And I got to see Dan from in person, which was awesome. And we shared coffee and some spicy Indian food, which was great. On to Nico.
Okay, so what went well this week? So I sent out for maintainer review my first feature MR, so with some content and just refactoring some tests, and I got tons of feedback, and I really enjoyed it a lot. I'm enjoying it because I'm in the process of answering them. So it's almost a month, and I didn't expect to feel part of the team this fast. And I had this realization while I was watching the last week retro that I missed on the view, like on Monday, and I thought it would be like, okay, I just put the video there and have my coffee. Instead, I stayed 25 minutes watching attentively. So it felt really good. Welcome, David, a new backend dev, and also in our time zone, so we can stress you out. Support you as much as we can. And also, I really like Think Big a lot. It helps to have a bird's eye view. It helps understanding our path, and it's very good for me. And over to Dan.
Nice. Welcome, David. See, super stoked to have you, as you can tell. But just focus on onboarding. Everything's good. We're getting the work together and care for each other parts in our team super right. So I would like to work in teams that really care about each other and like really care about what we're producing. So that makes me feel pretty happy. So thank you everyone for sort of being willing to go along with my kind of way of doing things. And I really appreciate all the feedback that I get and welcome totally blunt feedback. That's just my style. Working with other managers in the ops section, as you all know, I'm interim director for the ops section. Working with other managers in the ops section has given me much more context and a better sense of our team's efforts as well. And that's affecting how I'm working and what I'm doing as far as being the manager for the package team. So that's been really cool. I found our milestone retro process this morning pretty helpful. I hope other people did as well. And so I think that's a good way to sort of motivate us to sort of focus a little bit more carefully on what needs to be improved. And Tim and I got to meet in person. Also, yummy Indian food. That was really cool. I've now met Tim and Steve in person, which has been really interesting. And yes, Indian food is awesome, Nico. But when we have contribute, I really hope everyone makes every effort they can to come to contribute. I think Steve's comment was super interesting on this, which is like, yeah, we interact regularly, like a lot for work, and we spend a lot of our energy on work, but then meeting someone in person is a little bit different, right? And you get a different sense of someone. It may be consistent with your existing sense, but when you have the opportunity to meet, it's pretty cool. So I'm thinking about labeled jackets or shirts for the team at Contribute. So just an idea, something that would be amusing, and or stickers, we'll see. Anyway, and over to Nick.
Now I'm really looking forward to having a package jacket. So like you can't disappoint now. I'm not currently, there isn't one.
I'm always able to disappoint, Nick. This is the skill I have.
Okay, then. So for me, so all of my package issues are now in review and are sort of just progressing through. One was merged, and then there's a few others that are just going through the final maintainer bits. So hopefully they'll all be done middle of next week. And a big thanks to Steve and Gigi for the back end help that they provided this week. It was really useful. And then, yeah, another good thing is I guess this week I did learn a lot about Rails and Ruby. So, yeah. And over to David.
Okay, so I completed my D4 tasks on day 4. Woo! But I still have a lot of points to go through. So it's going well without any issue.
Nice. Did we welcome you to the team yet, David?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. Well, that's my bad. Nico, you should have called me out on that. Does anyone have anything in particular here that they want to chat about? I added an action item based on something that came up in the retro, but just as a reminder here, the intended process is when a front-end person is blocked by back-end work is to feature flag their front-end effort and then get it merged, and then you might have to iterate on top of it once the back-end effort is complete. It is intentional that front-end peeps should be working in back-end code. I think that the sort of maybe the calculation you could do in your head, the one I'm doing is, would you pass a back-end interview at GitLab? And if not, you probably shouldn't be responsible for that code. And so as much as it might be fun and that's awesome, it just means that we need to do a better job of working that stuff out. And I think that could be also something that comes up in our issue weighting process, is to sort of try to identify that. And I guess on that point, we had a demo for Issue Herder the other day. I'm not sure who was able to attend or watch the video after the fact. But we should probably find that and just sort of come to some agreement about whether we feel like that might be a useful tool, and that would be like everyone needs to go through and weight everything, and you can just look at it and say, look, there's no front end or there's no back end here, and it's pretty easy. But I'm open to using that or not. Anyone have any comments about that before I move on to Tim's question? Yeah, so Tim's question was around hiring, and then we have any updates. We do have a new person starting on our team on the 21st of this month, which is very exciting. This person is a Go backend engineer. That's been some of the stuff that Tim and I have been talking about in terms of strategy, because we don't have anyone on the team who's professionally worked in a Go environment and had passed the Go exam to be the Go screening process to become an engineer at GitLab. So very excited. This person will be joining on the 21st of this month. So we don't have the Europe delay that we've had with several people joining the team, which has been kind of stressful. But that's really exciting. But keeping in mind, and the thing to be aware of is, as probably the engineers realize better than the rest of us, is when someone joins, then there's a month or two of onboarding and figuring out what's going on, and before someone really starts hitting their stride in terms of their overall productivity and comfort level with the work. So we do potentially have another person join the team, but we're trying to work out requisitions for adding an extra person. So that process is ongoing right now. So I believe it's going to work itself out, and we've got plans in place, so that's good. Questions? Bless you, Tim. If no one else has anything else, we can call it. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions to this effort, and very much appreciated. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, whatever that looks like.